Aloha and good afternoon. Thanks for joining us here on this extended stream. Military officials are holding a news conference with the latest on the Red Hill spill investigation. Let's go ahead and take you there live.
Rear Admiral Jeff Killian, the Commander of Navy Facilities Engineering Systems Command, otherwise known as AFFF for short. And I'll provide the opening statement, then Admiral Killian will join me at the podium here for the Q&A period. The 29 November 2022 AFFF mishap inadvertently discharged approximately 1,300 gallons of AFFF concentrate, a concentrate that includes pre-polyfluorinated alkyl substance commonly referred to as PFAS. This mishap raised valid safety concerns as the Department of Defense prepares for and then executes defueling and then sets up for the ultimate closure of the Red Hill facility. And it also further eroded public trust in the aftermath of the 2021 fuel spill and water crisis. This mishap was preventable. I've already said this, and it needs to be said again to the people of Hawaii, that on behalf of the Department of Defense, I'm truly sorry. But I do want to be very clear, before I go into details, that the AFFF release was contained, cleaned up, and long-term environmental remediation and testing is ongoing in full coordination with the Hawaii Department of Health, or the DOH, and the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, in accordance with federal and state law. This mishap occurred while facility maintenance was being conducted by contractors hired by the United States Navy. Although JTF Red Hill was not involved with or responsible for this maintenance, given the gravity of the situation and the context of the 2021 spill and water crisis, I took ownership of this issue. Admiral Aquilino and I believed, Admiral Aquilino, my boss, Commander U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, believed that it was what the community and our elected officials expected, and quite honestly and frankly, it's the right thing to do. I directed an immediate investigation to determine what caused the AFFF release and to cull lessons learned to apply to defueling, and perhaps based on the findings to apply them more broadly. Major General Richard Heitkamp, then the Deputy Commander of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers headquartered in Washington, D.C., led the investigation. I thought it was important to bring someone from off-island to get an objective assessment. He brought with him experts, engineers in fuel systems and fire suppression systems. It was important that they had no involvement with Red Hill prior to the investigation. And the investigation is now complete, and it has been released to the public, and so too has video footage that captured the AFFF concentrate seeping under tunnel doors at Adit 6, and I'll show you a picture here in a moment, along with response activities at the tunnel entrance. So, ladies and gentlemen, this issue is complex, and I want to provide you with a thorough account of all the pertinent information. So I'm going to apologize up front, but in order to do so, my comments are going to be a bit longer than what you would typically see in a press conference. But you and the public deserve the complete picture, and I hope you understand. The agenda I'm going to follow is listed on the poster board here to my left, so you can keep track of where we are and where we're going in my comments. And as Commander Melendez stated up front, please hold your questions. I'll take your questions at the end. I'll make sure there's enough time to answer them. Okay, so here's the executive summary, the findings from the AFFF mishap investigation. The investigation found that there were two contributing factors that caused the mishap. First, a maintenance contractor hired by the Navy improperly installed an air vacuum valve during a temporary modification to the AFFF fire suppression system supporting the underground storage tanks at the Red Hill facility in April of 2022. And second, employees from that same company failed to disable, or in engineering terms, lock out the AFFF pumps from automatically starting prior to running tests on the fire suppression system on 29 November 2022. Now, that's a lot to digest. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk you through a couple of pictures and diagrams that will help tell the story, and then I'll come back to my remarks. So I just want to make sure that everyone can still hear me with my mic.
Sir, one moment. Sir, Wilson is trying to make sure that the microphone is set.
Good to go? How about now? Good to go? All right. Sorry about that. Okay. So, the Red Hill facility is located approximately 2.5 miles from the Pearl Harbor base. As you know, it's a bulk fuel storage facility, and it currently holds about 104 million gallons of fuel. Fuel, as you know, is combustible, flammable. The Department of Defense has a layered fire protection plan. Included in that plan is AFFF. AFFF is a chemical that, when mixed with water, creates a foam, and that foam puts out a fuel fire. There are 3 AFFF systems at the Red Hill facility. The first one is a system that covers the underground storage tanks. The second is a AFFF system that supports what's called the underground pump house. This is a diagram of the facility. It's obviously shortened, but the first system I talked about covers the tanks. The second covers the underground pump house, and this also provides support for the above-ground tanks that you see outside the base. And there's a third, smaller system that covers a pump that allows for the transfer of fuel from those above storage tanks to Hickam. So 3 AFFF systems. The one that I'm going to focus on today is the AFFF system that covers the underground pump house. The underground pump house right here, which is at the top of the facility, is just outside of Adit 6. And Adit is a tunnel. So just to orient you here, this is a pump house. You have the perimeter road and then a service road to the Adit 6 tunnel entrance. So what I have here now is a diagram of what you just saw. Remember, pump house, a road, and the entering into the tunnel. So now a diagram. So you've got the pump house.
Yeah, but if you're shooting it, that's...
And in this pump house, it's got the AFFF tank and it's got the AFFF pumps. There's a pipe here. It's actually 2 pipes. This carries the AFFF concentrate fluid. It's a steel pipe. and outside of that steel pipe is a PVC pipe. It's called a containment pipe in case there is a leak in the AFFF, so it doesn't go into the environment, because we know that AFFF contains PFAS. This system is typically filled with concentrate, and it continues into the Adit 6 tunnel underneath the road and then into the tunnel. And here's a picture of the entrance of the tunnel and the AFFF line that will go to the tanks. The way it works is that if there's a fire, these pumps kick on and it pushes the fluid through the line here, and then it continues all the way to the tanks. The system was installed in 2018. In August of 2021, the Navy found AFFF concentrate in the containment pipe. So that means that there was a potential leak in the underground pipe. Now, the containment pipe did exactly what it was supposed to do, is to catch that material, but they didn't know where the leak was. And in order to find the leak, they would have to do heavy-duty construction to rip up the underground pipe and to determine where it was. And so in order to buy time to come up with the plans and a contract to do that, a temporary modification was conducted to the system. And what they did is they converted the system in engineering terms from a wet system to a dry system. What does that mean? That means where there was fluid, the concentrate in this line at all times, what they did is they drained the fluid so there was no longer a threat to the environment. So this was now dry. So you had the tanks full with AFFF concentrate. This was now filled with air. And when you entered into the facility, they added 3 components to the line. They added a check valve right here, which prevented AFFF concentrate, which was still in this line, from backfilling into this dry line. There was a valve that was installed. This is a air vacuum relief valve, and then a containment pipe. And the way it would work is if there was a release that the pumps would kick on, fluid would come through the pump and into the pipe, and air would have to be displaced. And the air would move through the pipe and be released through this valve, and as concentrate filled up this pipe, concentrate would start to come in here. There might be some drops and drips. They'd be caught by this line, and if it accumulated, they'd be caught in this containment pipe so that no AFFF would reach the environment. And once this was filled with fluid, this valve would close, and then fluid would continue through the check valve and go to the tanks, to the sprinklers, and then put out a fire. The problem, though, was that the contractor installed this valve incorrectly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transition to just give you a little explanation on the valve. So this is a picture of the valve. And if you remember from the picture that I just showed you, the fluid would come in, pushing the air out through this vent, which was connected to a line to that little standpipe. And as the concentrate would come in here, there's a little ball, and as the fluid increased in height, the ball would rise and rise. If you lifted the back of a toilet, you'd see that float go up, and it seats, and it would close this valve, and then the fluid would continue through the check valve. That's how it's supposed to operate. The other device that you see here is that this is a drain. So if you need to clean this valve, you open up the drain and you clean any type of foreign material that's in there. This is a picture of that valve. And what the contractor did instead of connecting to the plug which would release to that containment pipe, they attached it to that drain. So effectively, they made a bypass on the valve. So I'm going to walk you back to tell you the condition in April of 22 of what happened here. So, if we had a release of AFFF, the pump would come on, fluid would come out of the tank, would push through this pipe. There was air in here. Air would be pushed as the fluid came down the pipe. Air would continue into the tunnel, through this pipe here, and instead of going out this top here and then eventually closing and the fluid would continue, what happened was the fluid came up this drain, had nothing to stop it, and it went back into this containment pipe. This containment pipe is only 8 foot tall by 8 inches, and when the AFFF pump comes on, fluid comes out, fills up here, overflows, and now you have a potential spill. That was the condition in April of 2022. So now I'm going to take you to 29 November, the day that we had the inadvertent discharge of the AFFF. What we call in the military, we had an error chain. We had a number of events that led to this mishap. You already had the condition that I've just showed you with the improper installation of the valve. Same contractor comes into the facility to do testing, to test the signal that would turn on the valve, and that's through an IR sensor, infrared sensor, that if there was a fire would send a signal to that pump and turn on. The proper procedure for the contractor was to disable the pumps so they wouldn't come on when you do the test. The contractor didn't do that. So the contractor, unbeknownst to him, sent a signal. That signal then went to the pump. The pump turned on. Fluid started moving through the pipe, went into the tunnel, got to the valve. It released. Because of the improper installation, went into the standpipe and then overflowed. That's what happened on 29 November 2022. Can you click to the next slide, please? Thank you. So what ended up happening when the AFFF came out of that containment pipe, it pooled on the floor, and it's at a little angle, and the AFFF worked its way towards the tunnel door. It seeped under the door. The AFFF concentrate then went down this entrance road into the tunnel, and then took a turn on a downward gradient along the side of the road to this little containment area. And if you can go to the next slide, there we go. And so just to highlight, this is the area that I just showed you, and then the scale just outside the Addit 6 tunnel, this is the area that we're talking about. And this is the area approximately 1 mile from the Red Hill well, which is disconnected right now, not drawing water, and several miles from the well that is being used for the Navy distribution system, and Admiral Killian can talk to that during the question and answer session. So ladies and gentlemen, that is what happened leading up to and then on 29 November 2022. So what I just described for you are facts that are supported by engineering and technical evidence. The bottom line is that this mishap was caused by human error and it was preventable. Now, I have thoroughly reviewed the evidence supporting this investigation, and it is my opinion that there are also shortcomings in the Navy quality assurance process at Red Hill. What does quality assurance mean? Quality assurance is a process that's designed to make sure that actions are done safely and that they're done right. And specifically, the Navy did not identify and remedy the improperly installed air vacuum valve in April in 2022. And on 29 November, the Navy did not have an oversight process in place to ensure that only approved scheduled maintenance was performed and that this maintenance was performed correctly. And I believe that this is particularly important because the AFFF fire suppression system is what I call a troubled system. It has had a number of issues over the last couple of years. And given that, plus the context of the 21 spill, that I believe the Navy should have had stricter safeguards and more assertive oversight in place to reduce the risk of this type of mishap. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to transition here to the immediate and controlling actions and what were done right after the mishap, and that's really the cleanup and then the environmental remediation. So the mishap occurred between 12:11 and 12:20 on the afternoon of November 29th, 2022. At approximately 12:40, a contractor working a different maintenance job was in the Adit 6 tunnel and saw the AFFF pooling. There was no telephone in his vicinity, and he did not have a radio. So this contractor gathered as much information as possible and then ran to another section of the tunnel and made his first report. That first report was at 12:48. There were a number of consecutive calls and radio calls then made, and the first contractors and government personnel who arrived on the scene got there at approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And Fed Fire was called throughout that process, and they arrived on the scene at 1:17 in the afternoon. The video footage and the video event timeline are available to the public for review. As I said, that they were just released. The first responders took actions to contain the release. Then Navy Region Hawaii, the Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam, and NAVFAC immediately took action per the Integrated Contingency Plan for Red Hill. Notifications were made that afternoon to the DOH and the EPA, as well as senior Department of Defense officials, elected officials at the federal, state, and local level, and all other stakeholders that we are in communications with regularly. And by late that afternoon, remediation teams were deployed, heavy equipment was mobilized, and the removal of impacted asphalt and soil had commenced. Simultaneously, efforts to clean inside the tunnel were also initiated. All these actions were in coordination with the DOH and with the EPA. And then several days later, after the contaminated soil was removed and with full concurrence with the DOH and the EPA, the area was paved to reduce the risk of any remaining AFFF concentrate from migrating in case of heavy rain. The Navy completed soil testing in mid-December and continues weekly groundwater sampling at 9 monitoring wells and also at the Red Hill shaft. And validated groundwater sample results from the affected areas show no exceedances of PFAS based on DOH environmental action levels and EPA regional screening levels. And again, Admiral Killian can talk to that. So what I want to do now is I want to transition and talk about the Joint Task Force and our responsibilities before and after the mishap, and the actions I've taken to reduce risk for future mishaps. So prior to 29 November, my team and I were responsible for completing repairs to support the defueling and then to defuel the facility. All other activities at the facility not related to defueling, whether it's preventative or corrective maintenance, any repairs not related to defueling or environmental remediation, were managed by multiple Navy commands. On December 6th, about a week after the AFFF mishap, Commander U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, Admiral Aquilino, expanded my mission, and he directed me to take centralized control of the Red Hill facility and employ risk and safety controls to reduce risk. And what that means is that while all these commands are still doing what they have to do for closure or environmental remediation or their maintenance, they report to me for the day-to-day execution to ensure that they're done safe and to standard. And to execute these expanded responsibilities, I asked for and received over 100 personnel. That's almost doubling the size of the Joint Task Force. And my team and I immediately implemented the following actions to reduce this risk. First, we took physical control of all entry control points into the facility. In fact, they are permanently manned by 25th Infantry Division soldiers, and now we're just relieved with our Hawaii Air National Guard airmen. We have a centralized security and badging process. Only those that have approved scheduled maintenance can enter the facility. All contractors have military escorts with engineering technical backgrounds that are with them as they move through and conduct their actions. These engineering technicians also are familiar with the procedures that the maintenance contractors will conduct and provide questioning attitude and oversight to ensure that their actions are correct. We've employed a very robust risk management process in that all the activities are integrated and synchronized to ensure that they're layered in properly and that we are not creating the conditions for another mishap. They are then integrated into a single schedule, and that schedule is reviewed and then approved by me. If any of those activities are high risk, then a separate concept of operations is briefed to me from that contractor and the Navy command responsible to show me the procedures, the risks, and the mitigations that are taking place, and I approve them personally. If there is an activity that is of higher risk, significant, a higher threshold, then Admiral Aquilino reviews that brief personally and approves it. We have established procedures for a single lockout-tagout program. That means that in order to disable equipment or to reinitiate it, that comes through the JTF, it's auditable, and it's managed to ensure safe operations. And lastly, we have implemented procedures for safety to protect the health and welfare of personnel and also the environment, and I'll go into that momentarily. I'd like to now switch to the current status of the AFFF system at Red Hill. As I told you earlier, there's 3 AFFF systems. One covering the underground pump house, the underground storage tanks, then the pump house and the above ground storage tanks, and then the pump that transfers fuel to Hickam. The last 2 are still functioning and operational, but the one that had the mishap has been disabled and remains so. But even though it's disabled, JTF Red Hill has worked with Navy Region and NAVFAC and Fed Fire to apply the proper risk mitigations to allow us to continue with our repairs for defueling. And we have built a draft proposed defueling fire response plan that aims to balance fire suppression, personnel safety, and environmental concerns by identifying a viable alternative by not having to reintroduce AFFF in that vicinity because that is above the aquifer. That draft proposed plan has been submitted to the DOH and the EPA for their review and approval. If the EPA and DOH do not approve that, and we have to, for safety for defueling, reintroduce AFFF, before we do so, I will personally validate the integrity of the AFFF system and keep the regulators, elected officials, and the community fully informed as we execute this, and to make sure that there's full transparency. Okay. We've talked about actions to reduce risk for future mishaps and to protect the environment, but I want to now talk about some things that I believe can and should be done to reduce risk even more. As such, I've provided 2 recommendations in my endorsement of the investigation to Admiral Aquilino. And the first is that I recommended that he forward the investigation to the Department of the Navy and request that they evaluate their quality assurance program for all Navy-awarded contracts at the Red Hill facility. And if there are any issues or concerns, to make improvements as necessary to further reduce risk. Admiral Aquilino concurred with that recommendation and has forwarded that to the Department of the Navy. The Department of Navy has informed me that they are moving out on conducting this review. I made this recommendation because I don't have authority to conduct or direct quality assurance on Navy contracted activities unrelated to defueling. And given what I believe are the shortcomings that I've already mentioned, I believe that this is a prudent measure. And I also think this is prudent not only in preparation for defueling, but at some point the Joint Task Force will be disestablished and the Navy will close the facility, and I believe that they need to ensure that their quality assurance program is working smoothly and effectively. The second recommendation that I gave Admiral Aquilino was to provide this recommendation to the Office of the Secretary of Defense and the commanders of the service components here in Hawaii, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space, and Special Forces, so they can share this investigation endorsement throughout their subordinate commands so that lessons are learned and that we don't have a similar situation. Admiral Aquilino also agreed with this, and he's forwarded it as I recommended. And then lastly, I made one other recommendation, and this is in regards to liability and accountability. And that while I took ownership of the investigation and my mission set was expanded to provide the centralized management and safety controls of the facility, the Joint Task Force doesn't own the facility, it's a Navy facility. The Joint Task Force doesn't own the contracts, their Navy contracts for the fire suppression system. And because of this, any determination for liability and accountability rests with the Department of the Navy. So therefore, I've recommended Admiral Aquilino push this to the Department of the Navy for consideration to do a review of accountability and this liability. And I have been informed that the Department of the Navy has initiated such a review. Okay, I'd like to now talk about the investigation timeline. Specifically, the amount of time it took from the 29 November mishap to the release of the investigation today. The bottom line is you cannot rush something like this. This investigation is significant, and it's absolutely crucial, therefore, that it be thorough and accurate. And the process to ensure this was lengthy. But what you need to know is there was no delay in the immediate and controlling actions to contain and then to clean up the site from the AFFF release. There were no delays on implementing measures to reduce risk for future mishaps. And most importantly, there has been no delay to our defueling timeline. We are still on plan to gravity drain the fuel by June of 2020. 24. And then finally, I'd like to discuss the video. While the video footage was not released to the public, it was shared with the DOH and the EPA to better inform the cleanup and the environmental remediation efforts. So a fair question that has been asked a lot is, why wasn't the footage released to the public? And the reason for that is I couldn't release it because it became immediately evidence when I learned of its existence. And releasing it could have impacted the integrity of the investigation. Remember, we didn't know what happened, and we needed to understand why. And so that was evidence to determine it. Once, however, it was determined by the investigator that the video footage did not reveal any additional information about the cause of the discharge, then I made the decision to only release it when the investigation was complete. And I did this in order to provide the most complete picture. Now, while the video footage didn't reveal any additional information about the cause of the discharge, it illuminated three important issues that I'm going to talk about here. First, the video, when you see it, showed several contractors and Navy civilian personnel stepping through the AFFF concentrate without appropriate personal protective gear. That is dangerous for their health and well-being. It's also dangerous for the environment because there's PFAS on those shoes that then can be moved and located in different areas throughout the environment. In order to see to their health and safety, we recommended that these workers go to their medical providers. And as noted earlier, the Joint Task Force has implemented new procedures on what to do for a AFFF spill or other different or hazardous materials, and the proper use of protective gear, and then we've included that in our training program. Second, we learned that while there was one camera outside of Adit 6 that was working, there was another camera inside of Adit 6 that wasn't. So I directed a review of all cameras in the Red Hill facility. And what we learned was that the Red Hill cameras are antiquated, some are beyond service life and not operable, and many others are degraded. While video cameras are not required by federal or state law, the JTF does recognize the value that strategically placed cameras would have for our defueling effort. And as such, I am moving out on the installation of temporary video cameras to be installed prior to the defueling effort so we can capture and record and historically document what we are doing. And then third, the fire suppression equipment that is used in AFFF has a data log. What that means is there's a system that records when pumps activate, when they turn off, what happens. And what we learned through this investigation that the data log is inaccurate. It was not set to the right time, and therefore we can't pinpoint for historical records, we can't do reconstruction to give you the exact time when the pumps came on. That's a problem, especially when we're going to do defueling. So I've directed the Navy and NAVFAC to work this, and in fact they're working that this week to get this rectified. But I wanted to make sure that you knew, and that is in the endorsement. So ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, this AFFF mishap was preventable. It should not have happened. And again, on behalf of the Department of Defense, on behalf of the Secretary of Defense, I am truly sorry. It highlighted the need to address underlying risks at the Red Hill facility as we prepare for then execute defueling and then ultimately close the facility down. And more broadly, these lessons can be applied across other military operations here in Hawaii, throughout the Pacific, and throughout the larger Department of Defense enterprise. So thank you for your time. Admiral Killian and I will now take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll open the floor up to questions. We'll start with Christina Jedra.
Yes, you have them.
Thank you. Hi, Admiral. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Based on the timeline that you shared, it looks like the leak was happening for well over 20 minutes before that contractor that you mentioned wasn't even assigned to that task noticed it. How is it that after everything that's happened at Red Hill, that there wasn't any system to detect that, either, you know, human eyes or cameras? You would hope that either the Navy or its contractors would be more on top of things.
Christine, that's a fair question. I've asked that question. There are no alarms for the AFFF system, so the control room had no indication that the pumps turned on. And as I mentioned in my brief, that the contractor did not know that he had activated the AFFF system. And the cameras that are in the facility were used or installed over 20 years ago to help the fuel operations division there, as they had some reduced manning so that they can provide greater coverage and have an understanding of what was going on in the facility. It's not, those cameras are not there and not being reviewed at all times. So no one saw the AFFF coming out of that tunnel entrance at Addit 6.
I guess to follow up on that then, for the defueling, should the public expect that there will be cameras everywhere as well as human eyes at every possible point to ensure that if something happens, it is caught right away?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. I should mention, we're going to take 2 questions per person because we do want to be respectful of your deadlines. Second, Mahilani, do you have questions?
Thank you. Hawaii News Now has reported on a federal criminal investigation into the spill at Red Hill in 2021. Has that federal criminal investigation caused any delay with the release of this AFFF video and this final report?
It has not.
Has the federal investigation created any disruptions for your job?
It has not.
Sir,
Thanks,
we have a question that was emailed in from Heather Mongilio from USNI. She'd like to know, why were the recommended steps not followed before?
I can't answer that question. All I can tell you is that I took command of JTF Red Hill in September of 2022. My mission was to safely and expeditiously defuel. This very, very unfortunate incident, which should not have happened, led to the expansion of my duties and responsibilities. My team and I took those duties and responsibilities very seriously. I needed more people. I asked for more people. They came to me. We've implemented these actions to reduce risk.
Sir, USNI has one follow-up. How was the drain line on the wrong outlet not caught before, had it not been inspected?
That is the exact reason why I've asked for the Navy to conduct a review of their quality assurance program. Again, the quality assurance program is aimed to ensure that actions are done properly and to standard.
Bryce?
The maintenance contractor that made those couple of mishaps, the first one with the valve, the facts, the finding of the facts mentioned that it was the incorrect valve, but that wasn't really the necessarily the reason why it overflowed. It was placed in the wrong place. You showed us on that diagram. How could that have happened?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. It shouldn't have happened. Again, the contractor is responsible to follow proper procedures. A contractor then does what's called quality control to validate that they're contracting, the people that did the job did it right. Then they turn that over to the government, and then the government then does quality assurance to make sure that the contractor did it accurately. Something broke down, and so it was not caught.
Has NAVFAC been in touch with this contractor? Are they being supportive of this investigation? Are they involved in any way? Have they taken any responsibility?
Okay.
Sir, thank you. Thanks. So the Navy is now in possession of the investigation, and we're actively reviewing the findings and making preparations for any necessary actions with both the contractor and or any government personnel as applicable.
Sabrina with HPR.
Hi, thank you so much. So you were talking about this robust risk management process, and I'm curious to understand sort of what exactly that covers and how in-depth you are going.
It covers every single activity that is now ongoing in Red Hill. Nothing in that facility takes place without being on a single integrated production schedule that is briefed to me and that I approve.
I guess I'm curious to understand, like, is that just repairs? Is that like contracts to order things in? Like, what's going on daily?
So every physical action that takes place in Red Hill has to be integrated into this schedule. So that's preventative and corrective maintenance for any type of system in the facility to keep it operating and running. There is a significant long-term environmental remediation effort that has been ongoing and will continue. Those have to be reviewed by me before they're approved. And then there's a significant repair effort that's focused on defueling. And we've talked about that quite a bit. Those are the 253 jobs that we need to do before we can safely defuel. Every activity has to be synchronized and integrated because there's what's called, we call it adjacencies and dependencies. That if you're doing maintenance in one section, you could have a second or third order effect somewhere else that could hurt somebody or could release hydraulic oil, and you have to make sure that you deconflict all these actions. That activity is now taking place. And any action within that integrated production schedule that is deemed high risk, it's a separate brief that comes to me with details on what exactly they're doing and why, how they're doing it, what are the procedures, what's the reference. Then, what are the risks from doing such action, and what mitigations have been put in place. And then, once I'm satisfied, then I personally approve that concept of operations. If there is a evolution or an action that is at a higher threshold, we call it significant risk, then this is all reviewed by me. And then I go to Admiral Aquilino with a recommendation whether to approve or disapprove. And so this has been implemented starting December 6th, 2022, after my mission was expanded by Admiral Aquilino.
And what is considered high risk or significant risk? Like, what's an example of that?
Anything that could hurt somebody or could have a negative impact in the view of the Red Hill context of what happened after the 21 spills. Significant risk, the threshold is any type of hazardous material that could potentially be released into the environment. So if we're doing repairs and we find a pocket of fuel and we need to remove that fuel to ensure that we can conduct that repair, that concept of operations is briefed to Admiral Aquilino and then he approves it. About a week and a half ago, we removed about 165 gallons of AFFF concentrate that was still in that line between the pump house and the Addit 6 tunnel. We got approval from the DOH and the EPA to conduct this evolution. We trained to it, we rehearsed it, we did tabletop exercises, we did walkthroughs, and then we briefed Admiral Aquilino. He gave his permission. He provided the permission to do so because AFFF, as you know, contains PFAS and could enter the environment. That's why he approved it. So that's the threshold that we're going by. Thanks for your questions.
Kevin, HSA.
Hi. My question's for Admiral Killian. We've been talking a lot here about one particular contractor, but there's been kind of questions about the workmanship of contractors throughout the facility predating this, and also some questions about other facilities. This is not the only facility on this island that's gotten EPA and DOH's attention. Is there any doubts more broadly about the workmanship or reliability of contractors around here? Is this leading to any questions or reviews, both at this facility and more broadly?
So I can't speak to any specific one facility or any one project in general, but certainly with the investigation, and I've done a cursory review of it just as recently as today. I mean, there are several lessons learned here for the way that we execute our mission and the contract oversight that we provide. So undoubtedly, this will provoke a complete review of our quality assurance processes on all of our facility support contracts, and I would go one step further and say our construction contracts as well. So, that's kind of where I sit today with respect to the facility-related contracts.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And just one question, how long do you anticipate, although it's extremely hard to tell, that this could impact the environment, potentially, given your military background, and again, just how frustrating is it to you personally?
Go ahead and answer. Yeah. Thanks, I appreciate that. So how long will this affect the environment? Let me try and answer it this way. So I am going to characterize our response to this one event, meaning the Navy's response, as rapid, comprehensive, and well-coordinated with regulatory authorities. But in no way do we discount or dismiss that our commitment to the cleanup at Red Hill will last many years. And so as we move forward past defueling, the Navy will still be at Red Hill cleaning up. And so I can't give you an exact number of years, but it's going to be a while. And our commitment to that effort is solid, and we're sharing everything with the public in order to demonstrate that goodwill.
Ladies and gentlemen, anything else? Christina?
If you'll bear with me, I have a few more. Admiral Wade, you said that there was a discovery of AFFF concentrate in August 2021 that appeared to be between that steel piping and the PVC pipe.
Right.
So it sounds like you had AFFF concentrate sitting in a PVC pipe underground for an unknown length of time. Has the Navy taken any action to determine whether that AFFF was leaking from that PVC pipe into the environment?
Yeah, I'll turn that over to Admiral Killian.
So thank you for that. So as Admiral Wade mentioned a few minutes ago, that 165 gallons was removed. We are in the process of doing a line integrity test right now to make that determination. Ultimately, it will be excavated and removed. And so we'll have a better understanding of whether or not that secondary contaminant leaked or not. Preliminarily, we don't have any indication that it did, but we still have to do a destructive test on it.
Okay, thank you. And then you talked about removing asphalt and soil from outside the tunnel, but what about the tunnel floor and underneath that? The tunnel floor is concrete, which is porous. What's been done about that?
Yes, another great question. So let me just back up and characterize everything that happened outside of Adit 6, and then I'll walk us back into the tunnel, if that's okay. So we had 24/7, 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operations to excavate, as you mentioned, the soil, concrete, and asphalt adjacent to Adit 6. Admiral Wade's slide accurately depicted where that area was. All the stormwater culverts were sealed immediately. This excavation effort was initiated within a few hours of us discovering the material. Within Adit 6, there was no surface, no standing AFFF present in Adit 6. As Admiral Wade mentioned earlier, it's gravity drained because there's a slope in there. But we went back subsequently during the month of December, finishing in mid-January. We power mopped all the walls, the entire deck or floor of Tunnel 6 from the point of the drain line that Admiral Wade had outlined earlier, and then we sealed it with a silicone-based epoxy. All of that was reviewed and overseen by DOH and approved.
Do you think, though, that the concentrate could have seeped through the concrete of the tunnel floor and into the soil underneath?
It's possible. But very low probability. The floor, the integrity of the floor within Adit 6 is relatively good. But we'll know that, as I mentioned, any remaining contaminant, this will all be wrapped into the closure cleanup plan long term. So this is another site that within the Red Hill complex that we add to our plan.
Gotcha. Just a few more quickly. Does the contractor Kinetics still work at Red Hill?
They do.
Do you have any concerns about that?
I'm going through the investigation. I do, absolutely. And so we'll complete our review of that, and as I mentioned, we will take necessary action.
Is there any reason that they haven't been, let go or suspended?
Well, up to this point, I haven't had the investigation, so I didn't have the facts. And so now that we have those, and I speak on behalf of the Navy now that we have those, we'll be able to take necessary action with our contractor.
Okay.
Make sure nobody else has a question.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. The map, I appreciate you showed the blue line of where the AFFF traveled. Can you tell us how far of a distance the chemicals traveled from that standing pipe inside the tunnel to wherever it stopped? Yeah, that blue line. Mm-hmm.
One more. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, so so we found the AFFF material all along this route, and it tapered off to very minimal presence down here. So there's a stormwater culvert here. You can see the concrete, but we removed everything.
So how many feet is that where it started inside the tunnel to kind of where it traveled and ended?
So within the tunnel, it's probably about here where the arrow is. 60 feet.
Inside the tunnel.
Okay.
60 feet. I don't have this number memorized, but it was about 111 cubic yards of soil, asphalt, concrete, about 3,000 square feet of material that was removed to depths averaging between 12 to 24 inches.
Okay.
And just another point of reference, so here at Adit 6, we sit about 250 feet above the aquifer, and everyone's familiar with Adit 3, which sits about 100 feet.
Okay. And if you could just clarify a bit more what is in place in case there was, God forbid, a fire today, what exactly would happen?
Sure. Thank you. So we have a layered fire protection plan right now. First of all, any type of maintenance action that generates heat, we go through a comprehensive review to remove all flammable materials, whether liquid or physical combustibles. We have what's called a hot work permission slip, and that is reviewed by Federal Fire. So they come on site to look at what maintenance actions we're going to do. We do no hot work within 20 feet of the tanks. When we do this hot work, it is with a fire watch, which has portable fire equipment and radios, and we know exactly when they're going to conduct this maintenance. We now have a complete picture of where every maintenance contractor is, what they're doing at what time. So I can tell you where there's higher risk at what part of the facility. This is different, though, than what we're going to have to do when we defuel, because at this point in time, no fuel is moving. Or if we do have to drain fuel that we find behind a valve, then work stops. We make sure that we take greater action. Fed Fire comes on scene. So that's part of these concept of operations to reduce risk. But when we start moving fuel and gravity draining, now we're going to have pressures, temperatures are going to increase, the potential for a leak exists. So we've got to take this very, very, very seriously. That's why we have built a comprehensive plan that we have submitted that we believe balances the risk of personnel, environment, but also fire that doesn't have to reintroduce AFFF. That's my goal, if we don't have to reintroduce. Again, we confirm law, so DOH and EPA are reviewing that. And if they concur, then we are going to have this fire suppression system in place before defueling. And if they elect that there's too much risk, then we'll work with all concerned parties as we reintroduce to make sure that we do so safely.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Just
you.
lastly, one more that occurred to me. You mentioned that you're recommending to the Navy that they look into kinetics for accountability and liability reasons. The companies that installed this system that has been so troublesome for years, I think I saw the name Hensel Phelps in the report. What about those folks?
Yeah, I did not make that recommendation, and I would leave that to the Navy, or maybe perhaps ask that question of the Navy. Again, my observation is that this system is a troubled system that there have been numerous issues, material and now human error, and so they may want to look at that, but that was not in my recommendation.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's press conference. Thank you for your attendance. If there are any follow-up questions, please reach out to the Joint Task Force Red Hill Public Affairs Office, or additionally, you can keep up to date on our activities on our website. Appreciate everyone's attendance.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate it. Nice seeing you all. Thank you.
A lot of information that we just learned here. That was a press conference with the Joint Task Force overseeing the defueling of Red Hill. We learned a lot of details, including that this spill was human error. Officials there are saying that this is attributed to some work by some contractors that were improperly done, I should say. They were contractors hired by the Navy. One of the issues was an improperly installed air vacuum valve. And that same company also failed to take some other steps to prevent this spill from happening. We're going to recap all of the details in later editions of Hawaii News Now, but I want to play for you the video that we just got in from the military officials. This is a snippet of the moment that the spill was began, essentially. You could see some of the chemicals seeping under the door here, and it's a slow spill. To recap, looking at the notes here, the spill happened at 12:20 p.m. However, the contractor noticed it 20 minutes later at 12:40. So as you can see right here, the toxic chemicals, the AFFF, and the other chemicals that were of concern here, seeping through the door here and just spreading through the floor of that facility. This video, again, just released moments ago by the military. This is just a snippet of a full 11-hour-long clip. We are working to bring you as much of this as possible. Here you can see some of the workers. This was after the spill was noticed. They did their best to respond immediately to clean it up and do the best that they can. So we're going to let this play out, and as you can see firsthand, again, this new video just into our newsroom. Our Mahealani Richardson was there at this press conference with military officials. They essentially covered as many details as they can into the investigation into the spill, and military here apologize, saying this was completely preventable. Once again, we'll replay this video from the start here. You can see it slowly seeping out from the corner over there. The military acknowledging that this was completely preventable, and they did apologize for their actions. They apologized to the people of Hawaii for all of the problems that this spill caused. Once again, you're looking at a new video just in of the moments of the spill as it was happening. I believe some of this video is sped up just a little bit. Again, the full video is 11 hours long. Military officials also acknowledge that the facility, some of the cameras are outdated, and ability to watch things back like this, they don't have that full capability because some of the technology there isn't up to speed, and some of the data banks, as he was mentioning, were off sync, and so it's hard to really pinpoint the time that all of this really took place. We're going to work to summarize this story and bring you the latest editions of this on Hawaii News Now starting at 4 o'clock. We thank you so much for tuning in to this live press conference. For Hawaii News Now, I'm Dylan Anchata in the H&N Digital Center. Aloha.